Good evening, and welcome to the fourth and final night of the Prout Chapel 2020 BFA Capstone readings. We have four writers reading work from their BFA theses tonight: Andrew Addessi, Melissa Griffen, Olivia Hawley, and Jayce Rubel. Andrew Addessi will be reading from a novel in progress, a project of both humor and depth. Inspired by the work of Italo Calvino and others, Andrew has embarked on a work of metafiction, fiction which betrays a consciousness of its own constructed nature. Andrew has constructed a main character whose very name, protagonist, betrays her role as a main character. However, in a further turn of the screw, Prota's awareness of her status as main character is a source of anger and anguish to her, and her sole desire is to escape from narrative and live a life without plot. Melissa Griffen writes both realist fiction and fiction set in worlds of her own imagination. Her realist fiction has been set in Europe and draws upon her experience as one of a family of expatriate Americans living abroad because of professional opportunities, and explores both the wonder of travel and the stress of always being something of an outsider while growing up. Her fantasy-based fiction has drawn both from the world of Greek myth and from the medieval world. While set in imagined worlds, her stories still take on archetypical themes we can recognize: the plight of someone marginalized, seen as other, or the awful sacrifices parents make for their children's safety. Olivia Hawley is a fiction writer of power and compassion. One of the stories in her thesis, Superior, follows an adult as she makes a pilgrimage back to the small town where, as a displaced and rebellious teenager, she lost a young friend. Though not responsible for her friend's death, she is seen as responsible and becomes something of a pariah before she flees. The story of her return, seeking closure and understanding, is very moving. Her other story treads the line between literary fiction and horror, much as one of her inspirations, Shirley Jackson, did. Jayce Rubel is a restless and inventive writer of fiction. He puts his characters into extreme situations and then plays out the consequences. He also makes frequent use of an unreliable narrative point of view, whether first person or third person, so that we're given a skewed view of the world with sufficient clues that we can doubt what we're being told. In his longest story, Camp Bearclaw, for instance, we follow a camp counselor's nightmarish descent into madness, never quite sure if the camper he's trying to help is real or a ghost. I hope you'll enjoy the work of all four writers tonight, as I have.
Hello, Prout people. Hope you're doing well. I'm all dressed up and prepared. So, what I'm going to be reading for you tonight is something I've been working on since my senior year of high school. Yeah, 5 years in the making. It's a novel that I've written, rewritten, and written again multiple times. The title currently is Plotless. I've played around with a couple different titles, but they never really seem to fit. So if you hear this and you have any ideas for titles, I'm open for suggestions. But let's not keep you here longer than you need to be. Let's get right into it. Chapter 1. My reflection stares back at me, her shoulder-length hair whipping in the wind, deep blue eyes, blue like the ocean. Her dirty blonde hair snaps over her right eye, revealing a purple crescent moon surrounded by 3 silver stars on her temple, one above, one right, and one left. Her complexion is flawless, not a single blemish marring her face. I was thrown from the helicopter to crash through the 18th floor windows. It's impressive I had the time to examine my face for so long. Glass shatters around me as I ragdoll through desks and cubicles, smashing computers and busting family photos. The workers scream and flee for cover as the thumping of helicopter blades hover outside the workplace. A hardwood desk and its owner cushion my landing. Shit! I push myself up and crack my back. My hands pat over my school uniform. Nothing tore, miraculously. I grope around for my gun and ditch the empty clip before reloading it. Some guy in a shirt and tie stares at me. I look him up and down. His hair's brown, short, but still styled, and his eyes have color, brown. What? I snap. Men in black combat gear unload from the helicopter across the workspace, guns raised. How? You just got thrown through a window from a helicopter. How are you even able to function? The worker asks. I grind my teeth, prop my gun, and fire 3 shots, all 3 of them finding their marks before I duck down, a couple of enemy guns sounding. There goes my position, or something dramatic like that. Who are you? The guy asks. Does this look like the appropriate time for questions? I say. The armed men are closing in on us. I think I should have some questions before I get shot. You're, what, 14 years old? How do you know how to use a gun? Listen, I check the cracked nameplate on the floor. Marcus, you want to know why I didn't break a limb flying through the window? And why I know how to use a gun? Behind you. Do you want to know, Marcus, who the hell I am? I grab my hair and wrench it back for Marcus to have a clear view of the purple crescent moon and 3 silver stars on my right temple. The first man levels his gun at the back of my head. What is... Before the man behind me can unload a hail of bullets into my skull, I fire one into his, my eyes burrowing into Marcus the whole time. The other men in black open fire, bullets whizzing inches from my face. My trigger finger fires back, all of my bullets finding their marks because, my aim is more accurate with 0 training as opposed to the aggressively trained underground military troops. Go! Get to cover! I bark at Marcus. He crawls as quickly as he can, using chairs, desk, plant pots, anything to serve as a barricade. I sprint past him, firing shot after shot, before diving behind a broken cubicle wall. We're getting crowded towards the back corner of the office floor, opposite the helicopter. Another employee hides in a nearby cubicle, a hand knotted in her auburn hair. Marcus crouches near me as I pull another cartridge out and reload. Where are you getting those from? Marcus asks. Shut up and stop asking questions. A man in black hurdles my debris barrier and lifts his gun over his head. He plunges it down, but not before I dodge, grab a fistful of his hair, and drive my knee into his face. He drops to the ground with a thud. Gunfire rings out. I whip around, firing back, standing amongst the hail of bullets. I duck down again behind the cubicle wall, a long crack running across its plastic window. When does this shit happen to me? Why today? Then again, I know exactly why today. I would have been more worried if this wasn't the first thing I had to deal with the instant I stepped out my front door. How did you knock that guy out? He was twice your size, Marcus utters. I turn from Marcus just in time to receive an uppercut from another guy's gun. The hit jars me, knocking my teeth together. He grips his gun in both hands, ready to dole another blow. I deflect it with my palm, using his momentum to introduce my elbow to his face. I said stop asking questions! I wipe my sleeve across my mouth and crack my jaw. The black helicopter blades beat outside, hovering just behind the shattered glass. I look over the fallen cubicle wall and see a man readying a rotary cannon. Perfect. Read my mind. It's exactly what this situation needs. How are you so strong, or know how to fight like that? Marcus asks. Shut up! If he doesn't, I might shoot him myself. What does this look like, a firefight or exposition hour? I shove my loaded gun under his chin and his hands jerk in the air. Can I ask just one thing? No! Without looking or getting up, I prop my gun over my cover and fire into the attackers. A groan of death sounds in times to my gunshots. If you want to get the hell out of here with your brains intact, I knock the barrel of my gun against his forehead. You'll get to cover, stop following me, and stop asking questions. Marcus takes the cue to leave. Marcus, over here, the auburn-haired girl hisses, hiding behind an overturned desk. The men in black are finally thinning out, luckily. I've almost taken care of. The rotary cannon open fires from the helicopter, spraying the entire floor. I drag my hands down my face, exasperated. Marcus hesitates, a revelation coming across his face. Wait, that mark, does it mean you're a... A stray bullet finishes his last question. Marcus! His co-worker screams in terror, watching him bleed out from the new hole in his head. Tears well and stream from her eyes. You have got to be kidding me right now, I growl. Standing, I stare at the two men behind the rotary cannon. I've cleared out the ground troops. They're the only ones left. The second man points in my direction and signals to open fire. The floor is chewed with bullet holes, the rug shredded with tears. Random things are on fire, I'm not entirely sure why. Smoke is dramatic or something like that. Stepping out from my cover, I walk straight into the line of fire. This is exactly why I don't want to deal with this shit, I snarl. Bullets zip past me, millimeters from my skin. This is why I don't want to deal with any of this. What are you doing? Shoot her! The captain shouts, the static of his radio crackling. Sir, I'm aiming directly at her. The air splinters and crackles in my ringing ears. I'm not asking for much, I laugh. The scent of gunpowder thickens around me. All I want is a friggin' normal life. But apparently, my shoes crunch over shattered glass, shards exploding from the bullet hell. The wind screams past the gaping windows, hundreds of feet in the air. I stare into the barrels of the black weapon, flashing with every bullet fired. Not a single one lands its mark. What is she? The captain shouts at the gunner. The pitiful clicks of empty ammunition sound faintly under the thumping of helicopter blades. I'm the goddamn main character! I lunge into the sky, arms outstretched towards the helicopter. The captain tries to yell for the pilot to clear the building, but my hands latch on to a notch on the rotary cannon. The helicopter lurches back, wrenching me, the gunner, and the captain about. Most people would have had their arm ripped out of their socket, not kept their grip like I did. With the howling wind screeching through the cabin, I heave my full weight into the helicopter, drawing my fist back. My knuckles and my gun gripped in them shatter the gunner's visor. He crashes into the helicopter door before the air current throws him out into the sky like a lost grocery bag. The captain, steadying himself, fires his pistol in my direction. I stare at him. He watched me walk straight into a line of fire literally less than 30 seconds ago, and he thinks his pistol's going to do something different. The bangs ring out until they're replaced by empty clicks. I walk the length of the cabin, my eyes on fire. The wind whips my hair, probably giving a great cinematic view of the crescent moon and stars. His hand trembles, useless gun twitching. My left hand snags the captain by the collar. You picked the wrong main character to piss off, I hiss. I wrench him to the gaping cabin door. The city skyline swallows him in an instant, and I rush to the pilot. Please don't draw a gun. Please don't draw a gun. He draws a gun. Damn it, I don't know how to fly a freaking helicopter. He fires a shot, keeping his other hand on the controls. We hold each other at gunpoint, glaring. Look, the rest of your guys are down. Please just make this easier on both of us. Land this thing over in plot line. I'll go on my way, I shout. He grinds his teeth together, considering the offer. Go to hell. We both our triggers click, firing a final shot from our guns. Of course, mine is the only one that does anything. The pilot's limp body hits the controls, lurching the helicopter sharply to the right, steering us straight towards the spire of a skyscraper. Shit! I stagger back, smashing my head against a switch or something. Shit. It's gonna be so much easier. I lunge over the pilot and grab the control stick, trying to correct us. I shove my gun in the waistline of my skirt and haul the pilot out of the seat. The helicopter's diving to a spin. I'm not able to correct its course in time. The tail of the helicopter careens into the roof of a building, the metal blades clanging and chipping at the stone. A wave of debris rains onto the streets below, and an explosion reverberates through the helicopter, a shockwave I feel in the back of my teeth. Now the thing's on fire. Just what I needed. Red lights flare to life, sirens scream, vibrations rattle my legs. Critical damage detected, some computer voice announces. Wow, thanks. Gee, I wouldn't have noticed otherwise. Why the hell does a helicopter even have an alarm like that? It's some sci-fi machine. I jerk the stick left and right, but there's no getting control of the thing now. The vibrations continue shooting through my legs. The hills at the edge of the city between New Estuary and Plotline. I have to try and aim there, somehow. I grip the stick until my knuckles turn white and the vibrations keep... Oh, shit. I think I'm getting a phone call. I dig into my pocket and check the name. Dewey Agonist. I thumb the green button to accept the call and hold the phone with my shoulder. Dewey, what do you want? I'm a little busy right now. My arms tense, trying desperately to steer clear of the tall buildings. Yeah, she's got your phone. I hear on the other end. Prout? My sister's voice. Tetra? Where the hell are you? We've been waiting outside for like 20 minutes, Tetra says. Well, currently I'm crashing a helicopter. You watched me get grabbed by those guys earlier, I yell. The helicopter is terribly off balance, swaggering and threatening to spiral totally out of control. I hear Tetra give an exasperated sigh. Fine, whatever, just don't lose my phone. You're buying me a new one if you do. I managed to clear the city, a black trail of smoke belching its way across the sky. I'm not going to lose your phone, Tetra. I'll be there soon. Do you guys still have my book bag? The hills are approaching fast. We'll put it in the lost and found in the nurse's office. I'm not going to be late on the first day back because of you. The fire is spreading to the rest of the cabin. The helicopter is turning into a ball of flames. Can't you guys just... Whatever, that's fine. I gotta go. Bye. I hang up and shove the phone back in my pocket as the hills rush to greet the helicopter. Time to get the hell out of here. I abandon the controls and jump to the open cabin. The nose of the helicopter plummets towards the ground. I swear if I tear something or get a grass stain, I'm going to be more pissed off. The stench of burning fuel fills my nostrils. I dive out of the helicopter as the explosion from the impact shudders the air around me. I hit the ground hard and roll over my shoulder, flipping to a stop in the grass. The helicopter blades dig into the earth, snapping daggers of metal in all directions. Huge gashes in the soil trail behind what is left of the helicopter, the fire crackling and sending smoke skyward. I let out a sigh and push myself up, dusting off my shirt. Tetra's phone is fine, my gun's still at my waistline. I couldn't care less if I lost either of those things, just as long as I think everything will lay, I didn't lose it. From my other pocket, I pull out a circular makeup kit. It would have been a disaster if I lost it. I run my fingers through my hair, getting it back into place, combing the right side of my hair behind my ear, exposing my mark. The kit opens with a click. The purple moon and 3 silver stars reflect in the compact mirror as I use the makeup brush. It's funny, I've never had a zit, redness, or an awkward phase, but I would trade all of it to get rid of this damn mark. The makeup brush glides over the moon, smearing a streak of skin-toned paint over it. Another explosion rocks a hillside as I start towards town, applying my makeup. Plotline isn't too far from here, but still, I can't be late on the first day of school. Alright, a little bit of time left, so I guess I'll start Chapter 2. Chapter 2. I raise an eyebrow at the cat staring at me outside the school. The cardboard sign next to it reads, "Pet the cat," scrawled in black Sharpie. It stares at me with chocolate brown eyes and cookie dough fur. A car pulls up behind me and a kid gruffly shoves open the door, tattoos crawling up each arm, and a fistful of piercings adorning his face. He wears a black shirt that just says "Death" in Times New Roman font across the chest. "Move," Edgelord grumbles. I go to snap back at him as he stalks away, but he stops when he sees the cat. "Aw, hey you." He scratches the cat behind the ear, making it purr. "You're adorable." He snaps back into mean, grumbly spirit and slinks away to the school doors. The cat and I stare at each other. It twitches its ear. "Oh, okay. You think I'm going to show some secret caring side to myself, huh? Reveal that the whole rough and rowdy thing's a facade?" The cat waits expectantly. Get comfortable because I'm not doing it. Okay. I think that's a good stopping point. Obviously, this is the first few chapters of a much longer piece, where there's a whole bunch more cliches getting turned on their head, tropes, and, a character hierarchy system of main characters, minors, and statics. I wish I had a good title for this, but I don't. So, hope you guys enjoyed, and if anyone's after me, good luck. If anyone was before me, good job. And good night.
Hi, everybody, and thank you so much for listening to my reading tonight. I have been doing for my thesis a compilation of short stories from my perspective and my family members' perspectives from when we lived in Europe for a decade. We lived first in France and then in Switzerland. So the story that I'm going to read to you tonight is actually from teen me's perspective, and it's called Our Own Version of War. I hope you'll appreciate it. It's 6:30 in the morning, and my siblings and I are waiting for the bus that will take us to the train stop, where we'll take a train to the next biggest town and hop on the big train to go to the city, Lausanne. The whole process takes over an hour. At least it does for me. We each go to different private international schools. I think it's because no single school could take us all at once. I'll have to ask Mom when we get home. So when we get to the next biggest town, my oldest brother DT will go the opposite direction to his international British school. His name's actually Damon Tanner, but because we have an uncle with the same first name, we call my brother DT. That uncle and all of our family live in Arizona. We are the only ones overseas. My dad's company had us move outside of our own country, and that makes us expats. So we've been expats for 5 years now. Sometimes I love it, and sometimes I hate it. Today's just one of those days that I don't know how I feel. Drifts of snow make the street look more like a sand dune, shining a yellow-white reflection back at the lampposts, which are so sparsely intervaled they hardly do any good. It's cold, and my hair is still wet. Jesse woke up late again, and took too long in the bathroom. I sneak a scowl at his dozing face. He sleeps right through his frickin' alarm, and that thing sounds like a frickin' fire drill. Anyway, my little sister Elise and I are cuddled close, and our brothers are our windbreakers. We don't talk. It's too early to talk. The bus is finally here, and is just as quiet as us. So's the little train. We get to the next biggest town, Parisieux, and I glance over at DT as the little train comes to a stop. He's almost 18, and going to be moving away in the summer for university back in the States. Next year, when we go on our family vacations around Europe, we'll be one person short. He waves, and I watch the back of his light brown head, trimmed short, almost like a soldier. I think he really is a soldier. He's definitely been through his own version of war. He used to seem happier, or at least smile more, but he has slowly become more serious and distant. His train pulls up, and I figure it must be lonely for him to go so far away from the rest of us every day, especially because he doesn't like his new school. But he didn't like the old one either. It's just so far from Lausanne, which is tons better than Beauvais had been. That's in France, by the way, if you didn't know. It's a small town, so I didn't really expect you to. Beauvais is an hour north of Paris, and my memories associated with that place make me feel like punching something or biting back tears. I won't be coming home with you tonight, sis, Jesse says through cupped hands, his curly hair swished out of his face. I'm going to the soup kitchen tonight. Elise's big green eyes get that mischievous glint to them, and she puts her hands up in front of her pink face, holding onto an imaginary table, bouncing on her tiptoes, while whispering in a raspy voice, "Feel it up, feel it up." I snort, and Jesse grins. Have you ever seen her again? I ask about the woman Elise had been mimicking. Oh yeah, she's there all the time, he shakes his head. You guys don't even know just how weird that place gets. I'm considering helping there for CAS hours when I take the IB too, I tell him. CAS is 150 hours of extracurricular activities in creativity, action, and service. And a student taking the International Baccalaureate program, or IB, has to reach those goals in order to graduate. You start the IB in 11th grade, so I still have a year and a half till then, but still, I'd rather figure it out now. DT is almost done with his, and Jesse just started. Both have been extremely stressed out because of it. They call it university 1 year early. 2 years early. My brother's face turns serious. No, I don't want you going there. Find something else for your service hours. There are some weird people there, Jade. A lot of weird men. It's not somewhere you should go. My mind starts conjuring up delinquents, drug addicts, guys with a little more on their mind, or simply sad homeless people. Well, maybe they aren't sad. Most of the ones I see look sad or angry. I don't really like being around homeless. I thought maybe if I worked at the soup kitchen, I'd be able to get over feeling that way. What kind of weird do you mean? Elise asks. I'm tougher than Jade. I could handle him. I give her a half glare that says, Really? Jesse fist bumps her, and I turn the glare at him. I want to spit out that Elise isn't tougher than me, But is she? I guess I don't know. I beat her in arm wrestling still, but that's not the kind of tough we're talking about. France was harder on my siblings than it was for me. DT and Jessie were beat up or worse on a weekly if not daily basis. And Elise was hit on the head every day with a metal ruler by her teacher because she couldn't speak French. At least after the first year, no one ever bullied me physically again. And even then, the worst that I got was being thrown into a wall face first, which I'm pretty sure is why I have a chipped tooth. It feels like we were bullied so much because we were Americans and members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. But I think the Muslim kids were just as outcast as we were. They looked as miserable as I felt. I think if you weren't Catholic, you were considered lesser, especially considering we went to a Catholic school. A whistle blows, and the big train arrives. We clamber into its relative warmth. Jesse is already putting his headphones in. Guess that conversation is over. I'm working on homework, or trying to, as we pass by rolling white farmlands that are starting to sparkle as the sun rises. We also pass through cute little villages of stonework and stucco. My homework is another history chapter on 7th century France. Switzerland's history was summed up in 2 weeks. There's really not that much to say about this country. It didn't get into any wars, and the country was formed rather diplomatically, separated into 3 sections: German, French, and Italian. And Lausanne is in the French part. When we went over the United States history, though, it only took 2 days. They don't really have that much to say about America here in Europe. At least nothing good. In our geography class, the only things they ever have to tell us is how much animal cruelty is in the American food industry, how fat we are, and how much we destroy the planet with our CO2 emissions. I don't hear anybody complaining about the cruelty to dogs in China or their CO2 emissions, or even the ratio of fat people in England, and trust me, they have their fair share. But the kids and teachers here can't seem to let any of these subjects die. Nobody here has anything positive to say about Americans, especially the kids. I realize I'm biting my tongue, a habit I picked up to keep from grinding my teeth. Sometimes I want to blame it all on Mom and Dad for bringing us over here. But I hear what Mom says in her prayers and see how angry Dad gets when we tell him about something bad that happened at school, and I know it isn't fair. They've also taken us to see so many cool places. I don't know if I'd be willing to trade those. I turn away from the history book and look at Jesse. He's tuned out as always, deep into his headphones. Hey Jesse, what you listening to? I don't think you'll like it. I hate it when people say that, like they've got me all figured out. Let me have a listen. He passes me an earbud. It's dubstep. And he's right. I don't like it. It's interesting. It's got a good beat. I try. Jesse smirks and takes the earbud back. Another great conversation ended. I look at Elise. She's dozing against the window with a Nancy Drew book open in her lap. Her cheeks still have a bit of baby fat to them that she hates. It's cute, though, and I get a good kick out of it. Calming myself, I unfortunately turn back to my history homework. One of the pictures is the fabled Sleeping Beauty's castle, Le Château d'Ussé. We've been there on family trips. Those trips really are the best part about being here. They have a lot of vacations and holidays in France, and every time one came around, we would hop in the car and drive to megalithic sites and caves, castles and palaces, Roman ruins and forests with gigantic boulders that didn't fall from any mountain and make no sense but are so fun to climb. During those trips, France was exactly what I'd wanted it to be that day when Dad sat us down and told us that we were going to live in a country that I had not realized was more than a fairy tale yet. DT was always with us on our surreal adventures through Europe. I gaze out the window and see the rolling hills give way to Le Lac Léman, Lake Geneva, with the beautiful pointed French Alps standing bluish over it. We reach our stop soon and after get off with everyone and their dog. We cross the big street to the metro station. The air is filled with cigarette smoke and car exhaust. I don't like how you can't go anywhere in this country without smelling cigarette smoke. I prefer the stench of cow next to our house to cigarette smoke. Or at least I do right now. Elise runs down the stairs with her chubby cheeks to the southbound metro. Jessie and I have to go north. I can see her across the way, her little nose stuck in her Nancy Drew book. Wait, dang it! I forgot to bring Percy Jackson and the Titan's Curse. How could I forget? If I weren't in public, I'd bang my head against the wall. Hopefully my friends are there today, so I won't be bored. Especially Bea, or Brianna. She's my best friend, also an American, the only other one in our year. Still agitated with myself, I look back at Elise, across the tunnel, happily reading. I think I got her into reading. She and I share basically everything. It's only once I met Bea and her sister that I realized sisters might not always be as close as Elise and I are. I wonder what it'll be like when I leave for university like DT one day. I don't know, but it makes me feel a little sick. The northbound metro arrives, and Jessie and I pile on. I watch my little sister through an entanglement of arms, heads, and bags until we zoom off, and my last glimpse is of Elise turning a page. I'll see her when school gets out, when we'll do homework, help Mom with dinner. We'll keep watching our latest favorite TV show, a BBC Robin Hood remake, and then hang together before we go to bed. I look over at Jessie, whose face is still unconcerned and a bit drowsy. You know, I get that he thinks the soup kitchen is too dangerous for me, but I'll be 16 when I start there. And he might still be there too, so he could make sure I'm safe. Besides, it'd be something I could share with him. I don't really know him that well. And all that I do know is that he made France look easy, in spite of it all. Jessie had found a group of friends at our school in Beauvais really fast. They looked like gangsters to me, and he started sagging his pants like them too. Honestly, though, I envied him. He had a group, even if I didn't like them. DT and Elise and I struggled to even find one friend and hold on to them for more than a few months. But I know Jessie got beat up too, a lot, from what DT has said. One time, he came home with a shoulder in a brace. An elbow shoves me from behind, and I nearly bulldozer my brother, who glares at the person behind me. I'm not sure if Jessie knows him. His dangerous glare continues until the jerk gets off the metro. It makes things feel brighter inside me that he's glaring. Makes me feel like he cares. A-hole, he spits. I don't say it, but I agree with him. My eyes probably give that away, though. One of my many nicknames at home is Laser Eyes. I hate that nickname. I'm trying to work on it, at not showing my emotions. I fail most of the time. Do you still have to deal with jerks like that one douche at the other school you and DT went to? I ask. Yeah, but they're not as bad. I can fit in pretty well here, Jessie replies. He fit in well in France too, though, even though those kids were jerks. DT and Jessie had gotten into fights at their old private school. It wasn't their fault. It was a couple of spoiled brats whose parents were friends with the place's president, or principal in English, I guess. They were always picking fights with my brothers, hitting them with pool cues, destroying their book bags, and probably other stuff that nobody cared to tell me. It got so bad that we found the boys different schools. Or they got kicked out. Yeah, I think that's what happened. You know, because there's so much justice in that. What makes this school different? I asked Jessie. It's an English international school, and it's large. Oh, I say. So you have less French kids there. Makes sense. No, we just have more expats. Most from England and South America, but also from the US. Sounds nice. He gives me a pensive look. Are you this judgmental of all French people? I'm a little confused by his question. Then I think of how he found a group of friends in France so easily. He just must not get it then. I don't know how to tell him that, though. I'm struggling with what to reply when he says, "You know our school in Beauvais was for troubled kids, right? Parents just didn't understand French enough to know that until we were about to leave." Yeah, I knew that. I didn't know that. I feel like I've hit the wall that chipped my tooth again. and it has knocked the wind right out of me. What he said can't be true, yet it feels true. It would make sense. Jesse shakes his head. I'll see you tonight. I watch him get off the metro, and I feel empty and terrible. I wish I was back home in Arizona, not headed to a place filled with Russians, Brits, and French. I need time to think about this, but I'm almost to school. I nearly miss my stop. I brace myself against the nose-running, skin-drying wind to walk up the hill where I pray the school doors open. They don't open it at the same time every day. And let me just tell you, sitting outside in this weather sucks. And it sucks even more when you're in a weird mood. My mind wanders painfully through my memories of Beauvais, then to the French students I've known since I came to Switzerland. I guess some of them aren't that bad. Some are even nice. Wait, is Ava French or Swiss French? What about if they grew up in Switzerland? That means they weren't raised in another culture than their nationality, which means something, right? The French here just aren't the same as the French in France. I know I'm not supposed to judge. It's not Christ-like. But I have been judging, haven't I? I trudge up the semi-ice sidewalk. My lips are dry and my nose keeps sniveling. Warmer days come to mind, of walking this same road with Bea. I hope she's there. I think about the building, how warm it'll be. I'll enter to the whiff of Bath & Body Works vomit from all the different perfumes, lotions, colognes, and deodorants walking around. The first time I walked in, I almost puked. But I'm used to it now. I'll grab the books for my first class from my blindingly ugly burnt orange locker. Why do they even use orange? The school colors are blue and white. Anyway, I groan internally. With how the weather has turned recently, I hope Bea hasn't gotten sick. School sucks without her. I mean, I've got other friends. I do. But sometimes you just want your best friend, you know? She's the first real best friend I can remember. Any friends I had in France just wanted a birthday present or ammo to use against me with their real group of friends. I try to shake away the thoughts of France, but they won't go away. Was I wrong? Was it just Beauvais that seemed full to the brim with jerks? Was it only that school? I just need to get inside and find Bea. The building comes into view, and there are already a few kids stuck huddling close to the door. Then there's also the group of kids emitting a cloud of nicotine emissions. I cross through the snow so I don't have to inhale their smoke on my way to the door. I was really not looking forward to freezing my butt off today. I join the growing horde of kids babbling in French to each other around the locked glass doors, light, but no warmth, flooding into the shivering crowd. I can see my beloved blinding locker, the snack machine, the coffee cocoa maker. My teeth are chattering, and my nose keeps trying to run. Bea isn't here. But we've still got 15 minutes. Dis donc, I hope she's not sick. Oh, sorry. Gosh, I hope she's not sick. One of the popular guys in my class is talking to one of the prettiest girls in our year and a bunch of older kids. He's telling them how boobs are the most perfect part of a woman. Parfaitement rond, or perfectly round. The girls look at him like he's nuts and start contradicting him. I was pretty sure he knew what boobs looked like close up, but I guess I misjudged him. I guess I've been doing that a lot. Come to think of it, the kids who have been the meanest to me here have been British or Swiss. And I do think Ava, that nice girl, is indeed French. My stomach is roiling with guilt. How many kids have I judged wrongly, or maybe even been rude to because they were French? Have I done that? A tall blonde guy from my class nods in my direction. Salut, Ivan, I respond. He looks like he just got out of bed and isn't quite awake yet. In fact, he probably did just get out of bed. He's one of the many Russian and border students that we have here. All of them come to class in sweats, don't have a care in the world, and smoke themselves to death. But they're harmless. I mean, Ivan used to be a jerk to me, but I think he's got a little something for Bea now. Come to think of it, I'm actually surprised he's out here this early. He usually comes in right before class starts. Maybe he's hoping to see her. 7 minutes, and she's still not here. If my mood wasn't already bad enough when I got up, and then when Jesse said what he had said, it's plummeted now. I send her a text that I'll save her a seat in our first class, but I already know she's not coming, and she's probably still asleep. I hope my text didn't wake her, and I hope she feels better soon. The heaviness in my stomach seems to be filling up my throat now, too. A teacher comes from inside the building and unlocks the door. Finally. Everyone starts moving towards the entrance, including the kid who had been ranting about perfect boobs, and a bunch of his popular friends. As they push by me, they chant, "T'es moche," which means you're ugly. I stopped paying too much attention to them weeks ago, but I still try really hard to keep the lasers out of my eyes. When they had first grouped around me outside the stuffy burnt orange building, I had walked faster to get away from them, not because what they were saying hurt, but because I decided I didn't need to deal with that. I think I'm too upset to care about them right now, though. I look around at all the French kids here. I don't like them much. Didn't like them? I just wish I had time to think. Anywhere but here, especially now that the day will truly suck. God, please help me. I realize I'm biting my tongue again. Just 9 hours and I'll be back home, where I can hide away in my room and maybe read the Titan's Curse. Maybe not. Probably not. I should find Mom and talk to her about France. Or maybe I'll try to talk to Jesse again. Whichever I end up doing, I know I need to talk to someone. I grip the strap of my backpack and follow the crowd into the school. Thank you for listening.
Superior. I found that grief is like a parasite if you let it become one. It hollows out a place in your chest, and it sits there, and it aches. The longer you let it nestle between your ribs, the more it takes from you. Some days, it clambers up into your throat, making everything tight so it can eat up your words before they ever pass your lips. Other days, it burrows down into your stomach and forces you to retch up every piece of solace you've managed to find until you feel empty. Most days, grief is quiet, but the weight of it inside your chest is always there. It's been 6 years since I've set foot in my hometown, but now, with every mile bringing me closer to it, I feel that thing in my chest growing denser, heavier. My car slows as I come to the end of the thickly forested road that had wound me up into the far northern reaches of Michigan. Finch Harbor is a small town, perched at the edge of a lake, though calling it small might even be a stretch. It's tiny, really. The whole town is about 5 by 6 blocks of unpaved roads and old houses, and the attractions are pretty much limited to the lighthouse and the lake. Both are admittedly less attractive in the winter, and everyone agrees that the lighthouse is haunted. Easing my car past the dilapidated welcome sign, I roll into the sleepy town and past familiar houses that belong to now unfamiliar people. Most of the houses look like cabins, kitschy knickknacks adorning front porches and dusty driveways. It's all that rural Midwestern stuff that you'd find in the garden section of a home repair store. As I pass the last few homes, I pull out onto Main Street, and I note that the shops that line the center of town also haven't changed in the 6 years that I've been gone. Somehow it's both comforting and unnerving that everything looks the same. As I venture deeper into the quiet streets, that weight in my chest starts to expand. It's getting heavier. I pull into the parking lot of the one motel at the edge of town and sit for a moment, staring at the steering wheel between my hands. I hadn't noticed while I was driving how tight of a grip I had on it, but my knuckles are now white with tension. After so many years, I hadn't been prepared for how much this place would affect me, but Finch Harbor has always had that way about it, that eerie way of getting its hooks in you, pulling you under and swallowing you whole. It's a nice enough town, but no one ever leaves. They do the same things every day. They talk to the same people, eat the same food, and wear the same clothes until they've worn holes into them. It's easy to lose track of time here. If you aren't careful, you can watch your whole life slip away into a sickening blur of normalcy. A gentle tap on the driver's side window jolts me out of my mind. My head whips left to see the concerned expression of a middle-aged man peering at me through the glass. His dark hair is thinning on top, and the skin below his eyes is starting to sag, suggesting age or exhaustion, maybe both. I note the name tag on his shirt, Hank Johnson, and my shoulders released the tension they had locked into at his sudden appearance. Now that I look him over again, I can see how his once young face had stretched out into what it was now. He must be working at the motel these days. "You all right, miss?" he asks, his deep voice muffled by the glass between us. He doesn't recognize me either, though I don't blame him given how long I've been away. I roll down the window and nod. "I'm fine. Do you have any rooms available?" "Always," he assures. "Follow me inside and we'll get you situated." In the lobby, I set my purse on the counter and dig out my ID as he retrieves the room key for me. "How long are you planning on staying with us, miss?" He sets the key up on the counter as I slide the plastic card toward him. He picks it up and eyes it, making note of my information. "Just tonight, leaving tomorrow morning." "Andrea Parker. Why does that sound familiar?" "I grew up here," I answer, reaching to take back my license. "Shoot, little Andy Parker? I hardly recognized you all grown up. Do you remember me? My sister used to babysit you and that friend of yours. Brendan?" "Benji," I correct. The thing in my chest is starting to stir, its sharp edges scraping against my insides. "Right," he nods, then gives me a look of measured sympathy. It's a shame what happened to him. Those words dangle in front of me like bait on a hook, but I'm not keen on entertaining the conversation that he's fishing for. "Yeah, thanks for the room." I gather my things and head out of the lobby. The motel room is old and a little musty, but cleaner than most you would find. The rooms only get used in the summer when people want a cheap lakeside getaway, or if someone's extended family is in town for an event or holiday. After dropping my bag on the floor, I fall back onto the bed and close my eyes. That thing in my chest is getting restless. It's waking up after years of lying dormant, and it's hungry. Those old wounds are starting to ache, and my throat is getting tight again. If I sit with this feeling much longer, I think it'll suffocate me, and I need to head out anyways, or I'll be late. Standing up, I grab the room key and my purse, then walk back out into the dark streets of Finch Harbor, gulping down as much cold air as I can manage. Out on the dusty streets, I take a right off Sutton Road until I come to the church. The building is long and made of gray brick, with a fading red roof and a bell tower that protrudes up out of the front. My mother grew up religious, though she said that changed when she moved to the city. She never talked much about her life before having me, but from what I have pieced together over the years, she went a little crazy in college. She made some mistakes and ended up all alone with a baby girl to take care of. She couldn't handle it by herself, so she moved back home to Finch Harbor, where my grandma still lived. Grandma got her to start going to church again, and then Mom made sure I went with her for as long as she could make me. She got even more insistent about it when Grandma passed. I ascend the few stairs up to the door and give an experimental tug on the handle. It opens with ease, and I shake my head. I guess in a small town like this, locking doors isn't such a concern. I pull it open and walk into the dark foyer, grateful for some respite from the chill outside. The interior looks like I remember, if a bit more ominous with the lights out and no one around. There are some new flyers added to the corkboards around the space, and a large poster near the front advertising upcoming events, but otherwise no drastic changes. Shoving my hands back into the pockets of my coat, I veer down a short hallway and into the room that I spent many Sunday mornings in as a child. It's a room full of small desks and a carpeted area which is lined with shelves and boxes of toys. Most of the walls are covered with religious but child-friendly posters or crafts projects from throughout the ages. I can't say I have too many fond memories of this place. Religion has never been my thing for a myriad of reasons, and I gave it up entirely after Benji died. But as a child, you don't have much of a choice in where you go, or when. "You have to let go of me now, Benji," his mother said as he clung to the skirt of her dress. Benji was not interested in the idea of Sunday school, but I think his mother had wanted him to socialize since he would be starting first grade soon. "It's just an hour. I'll be right down the hall." I watched from where I was playing with some stuffed animals as Miss Kathy, the lady that looked after all the children, had to help pry him off his mother's legs. Most kids would have been screaming, but Benji was quiet. When Miss Kathy led him over to me, he was sniffling and holding back tears. I tried to get a good look at his face, but his eyes were obscured by the brown curls that hung over his forehead. "Andy, this is Benji. He's your age and he doesn't know anyone else here. Would you mind letting him play with you?" Miss Kathy asked. "Does he like cats?" I asked, sizing Benji up with a suspicious gaze. I was playing with 2 small stuffed cats, and my 6-year-old self was not about to take up company with anyone who couldn't appreciate the complex relationship I'd built up between the 2 of them in my head. "Do you like cats, Benji?" Miss Kathy looked down to him and he nodded. "Yes." "He can stay," I said, petting one of the cats as if I were a miniature Don Corleone. "Thanks, Andy." Miss Kathy smiled at me, then left to tend to another parent dropping off their child. I gave Benji another scrutinizing look as he sat cross-legged beside me and stared at the ground. "I'm Andrea." I offered my hand to him the way that I had seen adults do. "But you can call me Andy." He stared at my hand, then at my face, his brow furrowing beneath messy curls. "You're supposed to shake it and say your name," I whispered to him. He hesitated a moment, then took my right hand with his left one and shook it. I was satisfied with that, though neither of us realized it was wrong at the time. "Benji," he mumbled. "Nice to meet you, Benji. You can play with Stella." I took the white cat and put it in front of him, then held up the black and white one in my hands. "This is her boyfriend, Oreo Blizzard. They were about to get married, but Stella just ran out of the church." I spent the rest of the morning explaining the storied history of Stella and Oreo Blizzard, which I now realize was heavily ripped off the soap operas that my mother used to watch. Benji had listened in stunned silence. I don't know what he was thinking, but at the time I had imagined he was enamored by my creativity and my talent for storytelling. We were fast friends and almost inseparable after a few months. All of the other kids in our town were either much older or younger than us, so we latched onto each other and didn't let go. As I stand in the room now, that memory of us and how we met feels like an echo. Too distant to grasp, and like it would slip through my fingers if I tried. Uninvited warmth starts to flood into my face, and my throat starts to constrict again. Balling my hands into fists, I hurry out of the church. The rush of cold air that hits my face as I step outside is a welcome relief, and I force another breath into my lungs, hoping to calm the thing in my chest. It's becoming more agitated. It's grown too big, and now it's looking for a way out. Turning away from the church, I start down Foster Street and check the time on my phone. 11:43 p.m. I have some time left before I need to be at the lighthouse, but I'll need to keep the detour brief. As I walk through the quiet streets, I look for any other hints that the town has changed. Nothing seems to stand out until I reach the house that Benji had grown up in. His parents don't live there anymore, and I don't know who lives there now, but I hope they're asleep. The sight of me standing across the street and staring at their house would surely be a bit worrisome. The house is still a soft shade of robin's egg blue, though the color is dulled over the years and needs to be repainted. It looks hollow now, less like a home than it did before. The terrible floral curtains in the front window and the rocking chair on the front porch are gone, as are the small goose statue and the pots of flowers. When Benji's family had lived there, the inside was kept immaculate, but still warm and homey. His mother had loved deer and birds, and she had little figurines of them all over the house. His father would often sit outside on the front porch reading, or inside at his desk writing. They were kind people, and they often let me stay for dinner or spend the night if I asked. I'm sure they were happy that their son finally had a friend his own age. I exhaled my frustration in a short huff through my nose as I paced around Benji's bedroom. He was sitting cross-legged on his bed, fidgeting with a Rubik's Cube while listening to me rant about my mother. I had finally broken the news to her that I would no longer be going to church with her, and it hadn't gone over well. I was technically grounded, but since our house only had one floor, I had locked the door to my bedroom and snuck out through the window. She thinks she can control my whole life, and I'm so sick of it. I threw myself back onto Benji's bed, my face flushed from how angry I was. He fixed me with an inquisitive gaze. "Can I do anything to help?" he asked. He always asked that when I was upset, and of course it was sweet, but it always took the bite out of whatever venom I had left to spew. "No," I said and moved to sit beside him. "She'll get over it." "Do you want to stay here tonight? We can do something to take your mind off of it." "If I don't get home before my mom sees I snuck out, she'll double ground me." "Maybe triple," Benji teased. "Shut up." I grinned and bumped my shoulder against his. I was surprised when he flinched. I hadn't bumped him that hard. I lifted the sleeve of his t-shirt and frowned upon noticing a large bruise on his shoulder. "Who did that to you? Was it Adam?" I asked as he pulled away and shrugged his sleeve back down. It was only the second week of 8th grade, and Benji was already coming home with bruises like he had the last 2 years. I had tried to protect him. I had told the teachers, and all they had done was play a 30-minute VHS tape about bullying. I had put myself between Benji and the gaggle of boys that picked on him, but they would find him during times of the day that Benji and I were apart. I had wanted to tell his parents, too, but Benji had made me swear not to. He was scared they would want to move away and take him to a different school. "It doesn't matter," he mumbled. "It does. You shouldn't have to deal with stuff like this. It's not fair." "It's okay, Andy, really. It won't be like this forever. That doesn't mean you should have to put up with it now. You've never done anything to them." Benji shrugged and continued to match up colored tiles on the Rubik's Cube. He didn't like talking about it, and I was out of solutions. As I was leaving that night, his mother gave me a plastic baggie filled with some cookies she had made, and his father told me to take it easy on my mom. I thanked them, then ran off down the street, wishing that I had them for parents instead. The thing in my chest is trying to dig its way out now. It's getting impatient. Turning away from Benji's old house, I head back up the street towards my original destination. Soon enough, I can see the dingy white brick pillar spearing upward into the night sky. Like everything else in Finch Harbor, it doesn't seem to have changed much, if at all. It's surrounded by a grassy knoll, just beyond the edges of which is a sheer drop to the lake below. As I reach the lighthouse, my throat closes up again and my body goes rigid. Just beyond the structure, at the edge of the cliff, is a fence, and still tied to it is the memorial cross. I can't read the engraving from where I'm standing, but the words are burned into my mind. In loving memory of Benjamin Miller.
Hey everyone, I'm Jayce Rubel. I'm going to be reading for my flash stories for you guys tonight. Hope you guys enjoy. First one I'm going to read is Lost. I never really thought about how expansive forests are until endless rows of similar trees became my only companion. The woods, so beautiful only hours prior, now hold a deep sense of dread as the sun begins to set. Each branch a limb thirsting for my demise. I know better. No tree has ever successfully killed anyone. The trees mark me as prey due to a present injury. A few minutes ago, I fell down a cliff and managed to survive. One moment I was on a blissful nature hike with my friends, and the next I woke up at the base of a cliff. While my injury is not severe, it is quite compromising. The twisted remains of my right arm will do me no good in my quest for civilization. My inner consciousness is telling me to get moving, so I pick a direction and wander in it. The first rule of survival is to keep moving because it makes it harder to track me. When coupled with my injury, sitting still would make me an enticing meal to an animal passing by. If I keep moving, I will be the passerby for another unfortunate soul. I walk confidently since any reasonable animal knows that sundown means sleep time. Even the most primitive animal will know I'm injured at a glance if they can see me in perfect lighting. Luckily, humans are apex predators, which gives me better eyesight than any native beast, and besides, the dense foliage provides me with all the cover I need should any animal even attempt to see me. There is one issue, though. I can't see that well either. At least that means no animal will bother to find me anyway. A rustling stops my progress. The sound came from directly behind me, which could only mean one thing: I'm being followed. I rushed through the woods quite heroically to put a little distance between myself and my friend, knowing full well that humans were the very top of the food chain. The rustling continues to grow louder no matter how fast I move, so I decide that I need to face my stalker. I prepare my best intimidating pose, which will scare off any logical foe. Even a brainless animal knows confidence when they see it. The bear stops in its tracks as soon as it lays eyes on me. Our eyes lock on each other in the ultimate test of wills. The bear, clearly cheating, was starting to inch closer despite my confidence. I'm dumbfounded by it. There is no way such a stupid beast should have the courage to face me. Knowing full well my next move, I jump back into a combat stance. As I'm attempting to focus on my invitation to mortal combat, an itch develops on my leg. I steal a glance to confirm that I am indeed standing in a patch of poison ivy. My confidence doesn't falter, though. I knew of a man who fought a bear with only a single hand. If one person can do it, anyone can. Maybe I'll even be the second. Since the bear is getting closer, I tuck my ruined arm into the waistband of my shorts. As before, I cannot show any sign of weakness if I want to win this duel. I barely had time to pat myself on the back with my remaining arm before the bear came into full view. He is a massive brown bear, which causes me to change my approach to this encounter. "Alas, my good fellow, strange to find you out at such a late hour," I state, switching to a friendlier posture. The brute did not appreciate my attempt at companionship, since he raised to his full height and let out an earth-shaking roar. Now we remain in a standstill despite my best efforts to end our feud with a little diplomacy. I do hate to injure an animal, but he is leaving me no choice. I scan the bear for any glaring weaknesses before he inevitably charges me. His matted fur made it impossible to spot anything other than his piercing eyes. For a moment, I thought I glimpsed some kind of intelligence behind those eyes. There's no possible way that is true, unless the myths about werebears are real. I file that thought away for later. After I kill him, I'll have plenty of time to investigate my theory. A stick on the ground catches my eye, and I hastily angle it like a spear. The bear, seemingly catching on, storms at me before I'm able to get completely set. My stick falls harmlessly to the ground as he bats me into the air. Distantly, my ribs shatter as my brief airtime grants me a strange flashback to my fall a few minutes prior. My head smashes into the ground, causing the world to return in a blur. Even if he isn't a werebear, he's rather smart for a bear. I brush that thought off before shakily getting back to my feet to issue my final warning. Despite my clouded vision, I know it is a stupid bear. This is your last chance. His body slams into me before I can finish. The blur becomes meaningless colors as I tumble through the underbrush. Even though this is the worst I've ever felt, I know that sitting still will finish me. I have to keep fighting. Part of me knows he is on his last leg. With a failing lower body, I had to rely on my singular arm for protection. I blindly grasped the closest object and waved it aggressively in front of me. It didn't matter what the object was as long as it intimidated the beast. The flimsy tool fell limp in my hand right before the bear rushed me again. I don't need vision to know I was rolling back down the cliff. Next piece up is dramatic. I drove down a dimly lit street looking for my next scene. I am quite the actor. You've seen my work in headlines, on the evening news. If you're a dedicated fan, you've seen it in your case files. The numbers 3184 on the decrepit mailbox told me that I was exactly where I wanted to be. It was a quaint two-story house without a single light on it. It made sense since the owner of the house, one Richard Clarkson, went to bed at the early hour of 9 each and every night. I could hardly contain my excitement. Creating a magnificent crime scene was my favorite adrenaline rush. Before I got too far ahead of myself, I paused to gather my notes. I am a perfectionist of sorts, meaning that every action was extremely premeditated. The crumpled page read as followed. Location, 3184 Cedar Court. Escape, dense forest behind the house. Special guest, Richard Clarkson. Notes, lives alone, few potential witnesses. I crushed the paper back into a ball and threw it into the haphazard pile of tools in the back seat. If anyone bothered looking for a note, it would blend in perfectly among the copious amounts of paper shredded by the very tools I intended to use tonight. I sighed a little at the thought that my collection of knives left egregious tears in the leather, but my peace of mind was worth the cost. I'd hate to be discovered if I was forced to leave my car behind. A friendly summer breeze greeted me as soon as I stepped out of my car. The warm weather and slight breeze meant I could make the scene even more profane for my many followers in blue. His porch was immaculate, meaning the spare key was trivial to find. A slight bulge in the welcome mat ensured that it was not well hidden. Normally, his spare key was kept hidden inside, but I knew that Clarkson was expecting someone other than myself tonight. A suitor was dropping by at 11:10 p.m., which gave me 23 minutes to prepare. She felt the need to change before heading over, which gave me plenty of time to play with my new friend, and believe me, we would be friends. His door opened easily and quietly, keeping his slumber undisturbed. I needed time to prepare to make my viewers as confused and horrified as possible. Tonight's setup was simply a chair in the center of his living room for now. It may not appear terrible, but once I had Clarkson in it, I would really get creative. His lady friend would be the first to witness tomorrow's headline as she walked in the door. A smile broke across my face at the thought. He slept in the master bedroom which faced the woods on the north side of the house. For the appetizer, I would assert dominance over my victim. I was always told that intimate activities needed a little foreplay, and murder is about as intimate as they come. I crept quietly towards Clarkson's bed, making sure to avoid noted boards that creaked. He looked so peaceful, sleeping all alone in the dark. The dark shapes of my hands latched onto his shoulders and shook him viciously to disturb his slumber, but to no avail. In situations like this, I start to get desperate. Clarkson was insistent to remain unconscious, no matter what I did to wake him up. Even though it would complicate my scene, I slipped my favorite knife out of its holster. I knew this would detract from the main event downstairs if any blood appeared up here, but I didn't have a choice at this point. I was running out of time. The blade slid into his leg, which finally elicited a response from him. "Ginger?" he asked. "Good. You're awake. I wanted a nice tour of your living room," I said. "Sorry, man. I told Ginger I'd be up here for her. Can't disappoint," he responded. I was so awestruck by his response. I left the knife in his leg and paced around the room. Clarkson shifted awkwardly in the effort to get comfortable, which ruined the rest of his coverings. Not only was Clarkson ignorant of his injury, but he was also nude under his coverings. All this planning couldn't go to waste. I needed to salvage this mission. "Can I call you Richard?" I asked. "Sure," he stated. "Most do." "Do you know why I'm here?" You the pregame Ginger sent?" My blood started to fry. Richard had a knife sticking out of his leg, and he wouldn't even yell in agony. My adrenaline rush was abating with the cool onset of fear. "I stabbed you!" I exclaimed. Surely referencing my assault would force him to act rationally. While he considered my words, I stared out into the darkness of the backyard. It seemed unlikely that I would even need to disappear in the woods if Clarkson didn't have the sense to call any emergency services. "So?" he asked. "So what?" "What about being stabbed?" he asked. "You're impossible," I said. The lock on the front door clicked happily, causing my heart to stop. I'd never been in such a confusing position, and my weekday audience would be disappointed if I couldn't finish. The play was ending tragically for all the wrong reasons, but there was one way to fix it. "Richard," she said. "Up here, Ginger." I slid the window open. "Everything all right?" "Yeah, someone just stopped by." "One chance. It's a straight shot." "Cool. The more the merrier." I forced myself to run, even though every muscle in my body screamed with the desire for self-preservation. I hoped my final scene would look tragic. So those last two pieces came out of a longer effort. I spent about a month trying to develop one piece a day, a piece of flash fiction. So it's just kind of forcing myself to get to these characters that behave incorrectly in kind of extreme scenarios. So that's where the first two came from. The next two are written more recently. Hope you guys enjoy. The next one is called Remains. I picked shards of glass impartially out of my arm as I surveyed the extent of the pile-up in front of me. My brain was interrogating the crumpled forms of cars on the highway in an effort to glean anything from their lifeless husks. I supposed I'd been running from someone important since the vast majority of vehicles were simple black vans, which I assumed were a uniformed unit before the disaster that brought us here. The car I occupied didn't even look familiar, which meant I may have stolen it. One truth existed, though. I had a killer headache. The car slid abruptly and spilled me onto the highway. Pain spiked in my arm as the glittering forms of glass impressed deeper into it. At least it was a momentary respite from my head, but it did very little for my overall wellness. Groans of tormented metal screamed from above as the car I assumed was mine continued shifting its position. I was mesmerized by its motion as I waited eagerly for it to fall. The chaos was satisfying and I hungered for more destruction. Disappointingly, the noise stopped as quickly as it started, a worsening headache, the only sign that it had been real. The urge to burn the car consumed my mind. Not only would it appease my destructive excitement, but it would send my car to the heavens heroically. My car was the king of crushed metal, pitched high on its throne of van carcasses. Whether or not the car succeeded in its purpose was irrelevant. Nothing mattered now. Besides, maybe doing my car this service would grant me divine help in the form of headache removal. I can't remember if I was religious, but there was always the chance I earned the good favor of a divine overlord. I tested my legs carefully to limited success until I crawled near a car for support. Standing was much less successful, but I managed to lock my shattered bones into place, which made them more peg legs than real legs. They'll call me old stilt legs if I happen to grow old, I laughed to myself. The thought of growing old in my current state was such a funny idea, I collapsed back to the ground, clutching my stomach to keep my insides where they belong. After all, spewing out my insides wouldn't help me honor my car. I took my fill, rolling in the conglomerate of discarded car fluids until I blended in with the ocean of it around me. My throbbing head, made worse from my momentary insanity, brought the swirling world back into focus. I begged my head to forget about it, but my head wasn't in the mood to forget. That's when it hit me. A lighter and some poorly wrapped paper agitated my head even more. At this point, it didn't matter, because smokes from the divine were just what the doctor ordered. I thanked the big man above me for his liberal use of contraband. The smell was intoxicating, and the hunk of flesh that gave them to me wouldn't need them anymore. My first attempt at lighting it showed that this particular one may be a dud, but I could not accept failure if any shred of my sanity was to remain. Carefully, I rubbed the end of it on my jacket, coating the smoke with gasoline and oil. This time it lit beautifully, a blazing star that wiped my entire mind. At this point, I was unable to register the burns on my hand or the ignition of gas all around me as the smoke dropped to the ground. On the waves of the inferno, I ascended. So this last piece is written off of an old tradition that I found in a paranormal show that I was watching. The idea of putting prisoners in a cell that was completely dark, and sometimes there was a couple extra surprises in there that the guards left for him. So this last piece is called Fading into Darkness. The world's last sliver of light evaporated when cold steel severed it from the sun. Isolation in the dark cell was never intended to be permanent, but deep in my gut I knew light was only a fond memory now. My eyes, now open, will not see these prison walls that encapsulate me, robbed forever of sight. I spread my body into the dirt beneath me and closed my eyes to focus my other senses. Feeling exploded out of my body, which bled into the room around me. I could feel the energy of every bug investigating their next meal. I could feel the walls closing in around me, each jagged edge seeking to impale my flesh. I could feel the guards creeping to the grate above me, eager to torment the defenseless man below. There was nothing I could not feel. It landed with a poisonous barb primed to attack and fire balling in its heart. Becoming stung by an imported scorpion is as prime of a death as I could hope for. The guards, while dipping into the cruel, could never look past the action branded into my chest. To them, I had lost the right of humanity. The scorpion's injection throbbed dully as it flowed throughout my body. Every vein registered the burn of its lethal fury. Satisfied, my cellmate curled onto my neck and fell into a fast sleep, his anger now abated. My eyes wrenched open to dull my feelings, register the illuminated face of an older man crouched over me. His figure is the only feature of the room which remained in complete darkness. He wanted me to focus on his yellowed skin and missing teeth. This man was not real. I would have felt his presence. "Hi, Jimmy," he said. He called my name, not the number that replaced it 7 years ago. This apparition is here for me, that much is clear. I made no move to respond, but I knew my voice had left my body. He smiled at my silence. He wants me to panic. He feeds off fear. Indifference is my strength. I am excited to make him starve. Thank you guys for your time.